This is magical cerebrospinal fluid, a potion that turns an ordinary human into a mage. When injected into the spine, it creates temporary, artificial magical circuits. A lot of heroic spirits in Chaldea need this item to level up their skills or reach higher ascension stages. For example, Moriarty needs 76 spinal fluids for his skills, and Amiya Alter uses 30 for ascension. But there are some servants who need a crazy amount of this thing for both their ascension and skills, like Galatea, Koyanskaya, and Red Hair. This isn't exactly new or obvious, but the difference in needs can be kinda surprising sometimes. And it's not just spinal fluid. Other materials can be like this too. But for now, I want to talk about this material. Take Koyanskaya, for example. She's more of a divine beast than a mage. Heck, she's not even really part of the Tamamo 9. So why does she need magical cerebrospinal fluid? Well, maybe it's because she doesn't have magical circuits like humans do. Remember her origin in the Tunguska explosion. Since she's a beast, she uses the fluid to fake it, like creating artificial circuits so she can use magecraft and blend in with humans, all while running her own schemes. Or think about it this way. In her assassin form, Koyanskaya steps away from her Beast 4 status, basically trying to ditch her divine origins. She's a servant now, not just a monster. The cerebrospinal fluid could represent her trying to become more human by using fake magical circuits, which is probably why she needs it for both her skills and ascension. Then there's Galatea. She wasn't born human. She was a statue that got brought to life by the gods, so she doesn't have a natural magic system like real people. The magical cerebrospinal fluid might be her way of faking that, like a stand-in for a human's life force or nerves. Just like how the fluid creates temporary magical circuits, Galatea might need it to keep herself running, since she's not technically alive in the usual way. That's why she needs the fluid for both leveling up and boosting her skills. But this guy's interesting. This is also why I want to talk about the spinal fluid. Now, at first glance, you might think his need for spinal fluid has something to do with his horse-like appearance, maybe some deep lore about equine anatomy or whatever. But hear me out. I have a simpler and slightly unhinged theory. It's simply because, from a distance, cerebrospinal fluid kinda looks like carrots. And he's a horse. Horses love carrots. Red Hair loves carrots. So according to me, the reason Red Hair needs a lot of cerebrospinal fluid for his ascension and skills is because he simply wants to eat carrots, or anything that resembles them. This is what we're doing today. Last week, I mentioned that my nonsense theory video wasn't finished yet and that I'd continue with part 2, right? Well, since I don't have any other ideas at the moment, why not just pick up where I left off? If you want to watch part 1, just click the link at the top. Let's move on. We briefly mentioned Koyanskaya and how her origin is pretty different from most heroic spirits. For Koyanskaya of light or her assassin form, it's confirmed that she's actually a bunny spirit. Yeah, this sets her apart from the other Tamamos, who are all fox spirits. But here's the thing. Why does Koyanskaya of light have long tails in her forms? Like in her third ascension, her tails get even longer, hanging down behind her. Honestly, at first, this felt like a design mistake to me. I mean, her ears in the second and third ascensions clearly show she's a bunny. They're long and obvious. Heck, she's literally wearing a bunny outfit, the kind you'd see in a casino. But the tails just didn't match. It looked like the designers forgot to change them. I was ready to dig into the lore for answers until I came across this video. Turns out, a rabbit's tail is actually pretty long. It usually just curls inward, so it looks small. So, yeah, it wasn't a design mistake. Rather, it was my mistake for not knowing this. Still, I wanted to share this because maybe some of you didn't know either. Next, you all know this welfare servant, Kichi Hogan. This woman is clearly rocking a spear, fights in a flashy and stylish way like a lancer, and has a loud, straightforward personality. And yet, somehow, she's in the assassin class. I know she's a Tengu who are known for living in hiding, and there's a legend that if someone sees them, they'll capture and kill that person in secret. But even as a Tengu, Her presence concealment skill is super low, meaning she's pretty bad at hiding. Something assassins are usually known for. This is kinda weird. Even she comments that she really should have been summoned as a lancer. Why does this happen? While I was spacing out, a random thought popped into my head, but honestly, it kinda fits perfectly here. I feel like Kichi Hogan's assassin concept is tied to the reason she showed up in the first place. Think about it. Why did Hogan even appear in that event? It was to punish Ushiwakamaru for her past behavior, right? So maybe, just maybe, her desire to punish her student so harshly influenced her to manifest as an assassin. And if you're wondering why assassin specifically, well, Ushi is a rider, isn't she? So it makes sense that if Hogan wanted to discipline her, she'd be summoned in a class that has a natural advantage against riders. Next. So you guys know that once Artoria Castor reaches her third ascension, her more mature form, she suddenly starts hating Merlin and even comes up with a way to kill him. Though not for good, because, you know, Merlin. The usual and more make-sense explanation is that she resents him for abandoning her. That makes sense. I mean, Merlin has a talent for making people mad. But honestly, I feel like there's more to it. See, Artoria Castor is kind of like Gaia's backup plan, a second attempt after the original Morgan failed her mission. Since she was created by Gaia, the will of the planet itself, maybe, just maybe, her hatred for Merlin wasn't something she developed on her own. What if it was built into her from the start? Like, it didn't kick in until she hit the same age that the original Morgan started despising him. If that's the case, that's kind of funny. Merlin somehow pissed off Morgan so badly that the universe itself decided that any version of her, even the reboot, would still come with a built-in "I hate Merlin" feature. Alright, this one's a bit dark. Noah shows up in FGO Arcade as a Grand Rider. In the arcade story, he introduces himself as Nemo, because when he was first summoned, he was attacked and almost killed, so he had to fuse with another heroic spirit, Captain Nemo. From that point on, he really seemed to admire Nemo. Well, that was part of the story, but what I want to point out is his seemingly hidden depression. You see, Noah's personality comes off as sincere and friendly, especially with animals. But here's the thing. Sometimes he also tends to put himself down. And honestly, I don't think it's just a quirky personality trait. I can't shake the feeling that Noah might actually be dealing with some pretty deep depression. Even though he acts friendly and makes self-deprecating jokes, it feels like there's something heavier going on beneath the surface. Of course, this is just a theory, so I could be totally off, but it's hard not to notice. Noah really looks up to Nemo and tends to put himself down a lot. When they first met, he even introduced himself as Nemo, though that could be because they were fused at the time. At first, it might seem kind of funny, but it gets a bit weird when you remember that Nemo literally means no one in Latin. Basically, we can put it this way. Noah feels like even his own name, which means to comfort in Hebrew, is too good for him, so he'd rather call himself no one. Honestly, that's pretty sad when you really think about it. But that's not all. In his third ascension, Nemo gets Noah's sword, and the design looks straight up Mesopotamian, like something out of ancient Babylon. Considering Noah's origin, it actually makes sense. This connects Noah to Babylon, which is pretty interesting because Noah has a Mesopotamian counterpart named Ziusudra. It's kinda like the whole Sigurd and Siegfried situation. Their stories have differences, and their names sound nothing alike. But there are some key moments in their legends that mirror each other. Now, here's where things get wild. In FGO's Babylonia chapter, when Fujimaru first meets the first Hassan, they ask for his name, and he says he prefers to be known as Ziusudra. So, if you start connecting these dots, it paints a pretty dark and complicated picture about his mental condition. What if Noah, after surviving the Great Flood and trying to create a better world, felt like he failed? Maybe he was so sad and guilty that he went to Mesopotamia and started the first ever group of assassins. Even crazier, if this theory is somewhat true because of his two legends as Noah and Ziusudra, That means this guy qualified for not just one Grand Servant class, but two. And those classes are total opposites. One is about protecting people, and the other is about wiping out evil through assassination. It flips his story from the guy who saved the world to the guy who, out of guilt, became connected to ending lives. For me, this really shows how depressed he is. Like his failure to build a better world pushed him into something darker. Have you ever noticed something kinda weird about the servant summoning chant in the Holy Grail War? Like, yeah, it sounds super epic every time we hear it, but there's this one part that always felt off to me. You know the lines, "An oath shall be sworn here. I shall attain all virtues of all of heaven. I shall have dominion over all evils of all of hell." The wording can change a bit depending on the subtitles, but the meaning's pretty much the same. At first it sounds cool, all heroic and noble, but when you think about who's actually summoning these servants, it doesn't really add up. I mean, it's the mages. And let's be real, most mages in Fate aren't exactly shining examples of goodness. They're more about doing whatever it takes to reach the root, even if it means crossing some serious moral lines. Just look at the Mato family, or Kirstaria's dad, or the music, the list goes on. So why the over-the-top good versus evil chant? Then it hit me, what if this chant wasn't made for the Holy Grail War at all? What if it's actually a leftover from the Grand Servant summoning system? Think about it. Grand Servants are chosen by the world itself, summoned by the counterforce to fight against the beasts who are literally called the evils of humanity. The Grands represent the best of humanity, standing against these world-ending threats. That heaven and hell chant makes way more sense if it was originally meant for calling Grands to fight beasts, not for mages trying to win a wish-granting cup. Now this raises an idea that the mages actually hijack the counterforce's summoning system. Like, the Holy Grail War might be using a broken version of a process meant to summon grand heroic spirits. But because it's humans doing it, not the world itself, they can only summon regular heroic spirits instead. So, how is that? Did it make sense somehow? Maybe not everything, but what do you guys think? Don't forget to hit subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.